Listen. That person who turned their back on you, who left you with unanswered questions, now feels the weight of what they did. The silence they chose has become a burden. The pride that kept them distant no longer holds any strength. And do you know why? Because they realized what they lost. They realized it late, but they realized. They think of you. They think of what they left behind, of what they destroyed with their own indifference. Regret isn't beautiful. It isn't poetic. It's bitter. And that's what they're feeling right now. A desperate longing to turn back time, to fix what can no longer be undone. But now this isn't about them, it's about you. Because you are the one who is left with the wounds, the doubts, the pain they caused and never wanted to see. And now they want what? Forgiveness? A chance? Look within yourself. How do you feel when you think about this? Anger? Nostalgia? Indifference? Whatever it is, truly feel it. Because you don't have to say yes to relieve anyone's guilt. And you also don't have to say no just to keep your pride intact. You decide. The power is in your hands. What will you do with that? What will you do with that? Because deep down, you know that what hurts isn't just what they did, but what remained afterward. The emptiness, the unspoken words, the shattered expectations. You carried all of this alone while they pretended everything was fine. But it wasn't. It never was. And now, with regret knocking on their door, it's you who has the control. They want to come back. They want to fix what they left in pieces. But is that even possible? Because saying sorry is easy when the burden of guilt becomes unbearable. What's truly difficult is having been on the other side in silence without answers, trying to understand why. And you tried. You tried to understand, tried to move on, tried not to feel. But you felt. You felt everything. The absence, the indifference, the void she left behind. And now she's back, full of words, explanations, waiting for you to respond. But the answer doesn't need to be for her. It needs to be for you. What do you want? Because forgiveness isn't about absolving the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the weight that remains. You don't need to accept anyone back to prove that you're strong. And you don't need to shut the door just to show that you've moved on. Moving on isn't about the other person. It's about you. Time has passed, but the pain doesn't disappear just because the clock keeps ticking. And now that she's back, everything you tried to bury seems alive again. But it's not the past that is holding you back. It's what you still feel about it. Face it. Don't run away. Don't fool yourself into thinking that ignoring it will solve anything. Because now it's different. Now you have the power to decide, and there's no right or wrong. There's only what makes sense to you. If you want to listen, listen. If you want to forgive, forgive. If you want to close the door, close it. But do it for you, not for her. Not to relieve her guilt, not to uphold some empty pride. Do it because it's what your heart is asking for. What it screams when you quiet the noise of the world. This person hurt you, that is a fact. But what you do with that pain now is your choice. It can remain an open wound, or it can become a scar. A reminder that you survived, that you are stronger than you thought. And it doesn't matter what she says, how much she cries, how much she regrets. What matters is what you feel when you close your eyes and think about all this, because that's where your truth lies. You were strong enough to endure abandonment. Now be strong enough to choose what you deserve. Does she want a second chance? Maybe. But what about you? Do you want to give it? Do you need to give it? The answer lies within you. You already know. You just need to listen. So listen to what's inside of you. Stop trying to rationalize what doesn't require a logical explanation. What do you feel when you think about that person? Not what you think you should feel, not what others expect you to feel, but what's there, raw and unfiltered. You remember everything, don't you? The good times that now seem distant, and the wounds that never healed properly. It's funny how memory has the power to drag us to places we try to avoid. But running away won't help. It's there, deep in your chest, waiting to be confronted. She comes back, maybe with tears in her eyes, maybe with a rehearsed speech, maybe with that look that once disarmed you. But none of that matters now, because what matters is who you've become after the pain. What you did with the emptiness she left behind. You've grown even when you thought you were standing still. You've learned, even when all you wanted to do was forget. And now, faced with this reunion that life has placed in front of you, you realize that the power has always been with you. Not in her words, not in any apologies she may offer, it's in you. You don't need to decide right now. You don't need to have all the answers. Just feel. Allow yourself to feel without fear of what it means. Her regret is hers. The forgiveness, if it comes, is yours. And you don't owe that to anyone. If you feel nostalgic, don't blame yourself. If anger arises, don't suppress it. If your heart tightens, breathe. You are human, and all of this is part of it. But remember, you're not obligated to anything. You don't have to save anyone. You don't have to fix what's broken if it doesn't make sense to you. Maybe you want to try again. Maybe you want to close the door for good. Maybe what you need now is just to look at this situation and say, I've moved on. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you chose to move forward with or without her. And if you decide to give it a chance, make sure it's because you want to. Not out of pity, not because the past weighs heavily on you. True love is never a burden. It's light, even when it's intense. It adds to your life. It doesn't drain you. It builds. It doesn't destroy. But if you choose to move forward on your own, do so with your head held high, knowing that you did your best. That you loved genuinely, that you gave your all, that you were whole, and that is enough. It doesn't matter if the other person recognized this too late. The acknowledgement that truly matters is your own. You are not what was done to you. You are what you made of what was done to you. And now it's you who gets to choose the next chapter. So what do you want to write? What do you want to live? What is your heart in its deepest silence telling you right now? Listen, because the answer has never been outside of you. It has always been there, inside you. Now that you've stopped to listen, what did you find? Because deep down, you already know the answer. Maybe you've tried to silence it, to delay it, to hide it behind distractions, but it has always been there, waiting for the right moment to be heard. The regret may feel real, it may be sincere, but what does that change? What does it do to how you felt when you were alone, facing the emptiness it left behind? Regret doesn't erase abandonment. It doesn't undo neglect. It's merely a late consequence of poor choices. And you? You had to deal with what was left. You had to gather the pieces, glue them back together one by one, pretend that everything was fine when, inside, it felt like it never would be again. But you survived. And not only survived, you grew. Even if it was through pain, solitude, and silence. And no one can take that away from you. Now she returns, bringing words that you might have wished to hear for a long time. But listen, what you wanted wasn't just the words. It was the presence when you needed it the most. It was the care that never came. It was the love that should have been constant and not conditional, and that she cannot give back. She may say that she changed, that she's very sorry, that she would do things differently if she could turn back time, and maybe that's true. But the question was never about what she would do now. It's about what you want now. What do you want? Because it doesn't matter what she says, how much she cries, or what she promises. What matters is how you feel when you see her again. It matters whether her presence brings you peace or reopens old wounds. It matters whether you want to try again out of love, habit, need, or fear of loneliness. Don't confuse longing with love. Don't confuse guilt with need. Don't confuse the comfort of the familiar with the genuine desire to be together. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to be the mature one who always forgives, nor the strong one who never gives in. You need to be honest with yourself. What hurts more, giving a second chance or closing that door for good? If you decide to try again, go in with an open heart but with your eyes wide open. Because love is blind, they say, but you don't have to be. You've learned. You've learned the value of what you offer. You've learned the importance of what you deserve. And deserving has never been about sacrificing for someone who only realized that too late. If you decide not to go back, don't carry guilt. You are not responsible for her growth or her happiness. You've done enough, more than enough. Now it's about you, about your peace, about what makes sense for your life. Maybe she truly regrets it. Maybe she has cried for nights thinking about what she lost. But that's her burden. It's not yours. Your path doesn't need to bend to accommodate the regrets of someone who didn't appreciate you when it was time. Look at yourself now, see how far you've come since then, see how much you've changed. Maybe what you felt for her no longer fits the person you've become. And that's okay. Feelings also have an expiration date. Self-love does not. What if deep down you still feel something strong, something that cries out for a second chance? That's okay too. The human heart is complex. There is no right or wrong. There is only what is true for you. But whatever your choice may be, let it be yours. Not out of pressure, not out of pity, not out of fear. For you. Because at the end of the day, when the silence returns and her words fade into the echo of memory, it's you who will have to deal with yourself. Choose your peace. Choose what makes your heart beat with truth, not with doubt. She wants you back. But what about you? Do you want to be whole? Or do you want to lose yourself again in what once shattered you? Think about it. And when you know the answer, you won't need anything else. Because certainty doesn't scream. It whispers. And you will hear it. And when you hear that whisper, trust it. Don't question, don't doubt. Because what comes from within is pure, it's true. Her remorse is a reflection of what she lost, but your decision will be a reflection of what you have achieved within yourself. This is not a game where the one who regrets loses and the one who moves on wins. It's not about pride, about who is right or wrong. It's about you, about what makes your heart beat with truth and what makes your soul breathe in peace. Think about everything you have been through so far. The nights when silence seemed to scream louder than any words, the moments when you searched for answers that never came, the effort to move forward when every step felt heavier than the last. And still, you kept going. You are here now. Not because it was easy, but because you found a strength you didn't even know you had. And that in itself is already a victory. Now with that person returning, perhaps with words of regret and even tears in their eyes, you find yourself faced with a decision. But listen closely. This decision does not define who you are. What defines you is what you did with the pain they left behind. What defines you is how you chose to rebuild yourself. Forgiveness can be a liberation, but it is not an obligation. Giving a second chance does not mean you are diminishing yourself, just as refusing does not mean you are unyielding. If you choose to open a new door, let it be with awareness, with your eyes wide open to the present, not tied to the past. Let it not be because you miss what was, but because you believe in what could be. And if you decide to close that door for good, let it be with the certainty that you did what you needed to do for yourself. No guilt, no regret. Look within. What do you feel right now? Not what you think you should feel, not what others expect you to feel. What do you truly feel? That is what matters. That is what will guide you. And regardless of the choice you make, remember, you are not defined by what you lost, but by what you decided to build from it. You are the protagonist of your story. The next chapter depends on you. Now I want to hear from you. What did this message awaken in your heart? Have you lived through something similar? Have you had to make a difficult decision like this between forgiving or moving on? Share in the comments. Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own answer. If this message touched you in some way, if it made sense, brought clarity, or even a bit of peace, please give it a like. It's important, not just for me, but so this message can reach more people who might need to hear exactly this right now. If you want to keep receiving messages like this that speak directly to your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here, every word is carefully chosen to touch what matters most, inside you, to remind you of your strength, your ability to rise, to love, to choose what is best for you. You are not alone. You never have been. And even in moments when it feels like no one understands what you're feeling, there is always a word, a message, a whisper that comes at the right time. May this one be among them. And remember, no matter what the past has brought, what matters is what you do with the present. The future is a reflection of the choices you make now. And now you have the power to choose what truly matters to you. So tell me, what do you choose?